Hello class, my name is Ruben Kafrishan. Today I'll be talking about Hadoop attacks by Ruben Kafrishan. For our final project, we are asked to create a Hadoop attack. So yeah, let's get into this. All right, so before we can, of course, create our server attack, we have to create some two nodes. Basically, the two that we were asked to create was a name node and a data node. So you see there I have two name nodes. Name node 0.1 was the one I used. Name node was just kind of like a trial and error moment. And of course on above you can see on the left side on my vSphere account shows the data node. Basically the software we used to install on these VMs was Ubuntu 18.4, and most of our configuration will be done in the terminal command. The Hadoop version that we will be installing, version 3.1.3. The Java installation that we will be implementing was supposed to be Java 7, but since Java 7 has been discontinued, and we decided to use Java 8 installation. Basically, that's kind of what I needed to do to prepare before I could start my my attacks. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Basically, the first command I implemented was installing OpenJDK8. So it's sudo apt-get -y install OpenJDK-a. Basically, it also after I implemented that, it asked me to input my password so I can get into my sudo admin role to finish the installation process, and that's what I did. Basically, Java development, it's just a Java development kit that we implemented. It's free, it's open source. Basically, you just go to the website and you can do it that way with the installation. But since we're doing most of our installation process through the terminal, we just have to type out a single command, and it gets implemented, basically. All right, so the next slide. So next thing that I implemented was creating a group for Hadoop. Very simple. You just type in sudo add group Hadoop _, and basically it created me a group called Hadoop. So yeah, really simple. There's kind of steps. Slide 5. So here I implemented another like kind of an add group was sudo add user -init group Hadoop /Hadoop user. Basically, when I inputted this command, it asked me a few questions. If you look on the lower portion of my screenshot, you see where it says full name, room number, work phone, home phone, and other, which is kind of cropped out. Basically, to save myself time, I just inputted my name, and of course the room number and the other numbers, or the phone. I just inputted one because basically this is just the final, and yeah, just for saving myself some time, I just kind of defaulted with one on this slide. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Here you see we added the groups, so we did sudo add user hd user -sudo. Nothing really special here, just adding a group. All right, next slide. Now we are on to the creating a private key. Basically, the SSH key that we implemented here is so that the master node can, of course, log into the slave node. So, right, if you remember, I talked about in the beginning that we created two nodes, a data node and a name node. So basically, the data node is going to be our, our kind of like our master node, and then of course the name node is kind of like the slave node. So basically, the reason why we created this key, a private key, is so that we can, of course, get into that other VM. So yeah, basically the command here is ssh-keygen-t space rsa-p : and pretty much generated what we needed to, and then where it says RSA 248, basically there's our key. All right, let's go to the next slide. Basically here, this command that I implemented moved the file for the keys. So the name cat here, not like the animal cat, but basically in the terminal command, there's this cat name that we can use to implement moving our key, and of course changing the name of our key. So basically, if you see my command I inputted here, there's like the two arrows pointing towards another destination. Basically, that's what that does, and of course, we change the name to authorized key to place it into that area. All right, let's go to the next slide. SSH localhost. Basically, SSH localhost, and make sure that the localhost is added to the list of known hosts, which will be our other one, so that a script execution doesn't get interrupted. So what that means is there's no questioning about trusting, localhost authentication. Basically, that's why we implemented the SSH localhost. Before we were able to implement this, we had to select yes. As you see in my screenshot there, I implemented yes. Let's see here. Yeah, and basically the system needs to restart, needs to be required so that it can be implemented. All right, going on to the next slide. Slide 10, pretty much opening the SSH server. Pretty much just adding this command, sudo apt get purge open SSH server, password HD user. Really nothing too fancy here, and of course it also always asks us to get into the sudo terminal part of it, so I put my password and basically it asks us, if you look at the middle part of my snapshot, it says, do you want to continue? I just pressed yes because that's what it's asking for. It's asking for to free the disk space will be freed, this much amount of space will be freed. All right, going on to the next slide. Of course, installing SSH, open SSH server. Basically here it allows you to modify, their remote server over the internet. Basically, all this does is you don't have to be at the remote location or the place where the open SSH server is. With the growth in the IT and the internet, we have this ability to where we can remote in to certain places. We can, of course, do things on the go, which is a blessing in disguise. Or else we would all have to be at the open SSH server. Basically, I just typed in this command, sudo apt get install open SSH-server. Basically, it did that. It didn't need to get into the sudo, so easily installed it there. Next slide. And of course, now we go on to installing Hadoop. So first I got to the root user to finish downloading of the Hadoop 3.1.3. The command for that is wget http, and then of course the URL right there on my third line, if you can see that, which also goes into the fourth line, talking about which version we typed in, or the version type that we want to install, which is 3.1.3. And as you can see there in the lower part of my screenshot, it says 100% completely installed. Nothing too hard to handle. And the place where I started getting issues was connecting to Hadoop failed. Basically, this command right here should allow you to get into Hadoop. Page should be very different, but for some reason, as you can see, the output of the command says unable to init server, connection refused, and then it talks about the warning, or cannot open display. I couldn't understand why it wasn't working. So yeah, it's just kind of as far as it could go within the final project. There were other commands that I tried to implement, but of course I was getting errors. Most likely this was from back in that area. But overall, it was a very interesting experience. The issues, of course, are endless, but of course, if you are able to, of course, Google things and ask questions, usually things become a bit easier. But yeah, this is as far as I could go. Yeah, thanks.